Hey, thanks for joining us for This Week with Johnny Kincaid. I got to tell you, this is going to be a great show today because we've got Joe Wallace here. Joe was instrumental in economic development in Evansville a few years ago. He's moved out to California. We're going to catch up with what he's up to these days and get his thoughts and input on growth in the Evansville area, or possibly the lack thereof, maybe we should be saying. But before we get to Joe, I've got an update on a story that you've been seeing us cover in the City County Observer, which deals with the event at Roberts Park that was actually listed on the application as being a rodeo. Now, how they were going to put a rodeo in Roberts Park, I don't know, but the Parks Department approved that, and over the course of the night, it turned into chaos. The police were kept busy all night long into the early morning hours. They were following up on cars doing burnouts in parking lots of gas stations and huge gatherings, and they were having to break out the pepper balls and so on down the line. The night ended with a shootout. And in that shootout at the corner of Covert and Green River, that shootout that took place ended up with 3 people injured. One was a 16-year-old boy. And now they arrested 2 suspects. One of the suspects has already been sentenced, and his sentence, the prosecutor's office said it would be too hard to prove anything related to attempted murder, so they had to drop all of the charges down to the point where the sentence is 88 days is what the guy got. Now, when the Courier reported that, though, and I'm really suspect of some things, and this is one of them, the Courier reported that the incident took place in mid-July. The incident took place on June 29th, June 30th, night of the 29th, morning of the 30th. And I mean, they're talking a 2-week screw up in reporting on the incident. And I don't know whether they got bad information from the police or where that originates from, but somewhere along the line, this is an event that nobody wants to talk about. They're kind of at the city level, they're kind of hiding under their desks, and we've had some fun with the fact that the city approved a rodeo for the old Roberts Stadium site. Too funny.
What started out as a lot of bull, so what do you expect,
exactly.
Man?
That's exactly
They tried to ride the rascal.
That's very true. So Joe Wallace is here now, and Joe, by the way, that story, we're going to be covering some more. We're going to be keeping an eye on this because there are going to be some more developments come out of this thing for sure. Joe was a part of Gauge here in Evansville. Let's see, give me the...
Growth Alliance for Greater Evansville.
Growth Alliance Greater Evansville, yeah. And working on economic development issues. Now, Joe left our fine community. We're heartbroken over that, truly, because Joe was a great contributor to our community.
Thank you.
And now you live in sunny California.
Yes.
Right? And actually in one of the real true hot spots of California. You get some pretty warm days in that neck of the woods.
That is correct. Now that I've retired, they're not going to see much of me in July and August. 110 is kind of the average of the highs, and sometimes you get 120. We wear gloves in the summer, so the steering wheel don't burn our hands.
Wow. Okay. So, but Joe's going to brings an interesting perspective to some things in that pertain to Evansville. Even though he's been away for a while, there is still a lot of wisdom in information that Joe has to share. So I guess let's start off with kind of the state of the city of Evansville right now, because you've tracked what's happened with we've put a huge focus over the years on our downtown area of Evansville. I go back to remember when they did the brick project on Main Street, and they sold the bricks with people's names in them and laid those bricks. That was when they first decided it was going to become a closed to vehicular traffic and was going to be a
So you're getting back in my middle school days or something like that. 'Cause I'm old enough to have gone to movies in movie theaters down there, and there were a couple of them.
Yeah.
And I bought a really nice guitar at More Music off the rack. But it was a drive place still. It wasn't a walkway. And then I believe, when did that happen? Was it Russ Lloyd's dad's administration?
No, it was.
Or was it before that?
No, because I came to Evansville in '87. So it was actually shortly after that. So I'm trying to think, would that be Frank McDonald's administration?
This would have been after I had graduated from UE. And in '87, I would have been in California on my first tour of duty out there.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So they did that project, and they more recently they completely redid the riverfront, and they sold us on the idea of the new riverfront in Evansville at that time, with the idea that there are 5,000 seats there, that you'll be able to do floating concerts on barges, and
I know.
And it was going to be it was going to be the renovation of downtown Evansville.
As I recall, that was $20 million they spent. That's what, and it's. I thought it was beautiful the first time I saw it.
Oh, yeah.
I come in to visit, have family in the area, so I'm in a couple of times a year now, and I was back then too. And I bought. People will show up and sit on the riverfront, watch the fast boats, and who knows? You're going to bring all the bands that have not come to the Ford Center because it's not big enough.
Right.
Well, they didn't go there to the riverfront either.
That's right.
Metallica, you got to have 20,000 seats to get a band like that. We got about half that much.
Yeah. It's like Evansville is we'll do things almost to the point that it'll make things good.
And it's surrounded by 4 metro areas that have the 20,000 seat stuff. So the bands that'll go to Louisville, Indy, Nashville, St. Louis. Okay, tank of gas or a half a tank of gas is cheaper than putting up a 20,000 seat arena.
Right.
So it's unlikely that there will ever be those kind of acts in a 10,000 seat arena.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, Taylor Swift ain't coming back. And she did used to practice at Robert Stadium before she'd go on tour, when she was not even old enough to date a Kelsey boy.
See, that was, but it was common for Robert Stadium. It was a great rehearsal facility.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the rent was cheap. You could come in. You could start your tour in Evansville and do 2 or 3 days of rehearsal before you start the tour, and do it affordably here before you get the show rolling.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we've taken downtown, though, and we've put so much focus on it. We moved the stadium down there. We've done other things. Russ Lloyd lost his election partly because he
baseball
was
stadium.
pitching the baseball stadium.
$20 million baseball stadium. It'll ruin us. Get that guy out of there. I remember that Take Me Out to the Ball Game ad. Where they got a Jack in the Box bouncing around the bases.
Right. Yeah. And the same guy who wanted to take Russ Lloyd, who did take Russ Lloyd out, turned around and put the stadium downtown.
Of course.
So, all right. That's the logic of Evansville.
Well, it's not just Evansville.
Yeah. So our downtown, again, that's been such a big focus, and we kind of feel like we want to be a tourist town or something here in Evansville. We want to be what we're not. And our history is manufacturing. This has been a great manufacturing community through the years. So when we look at, after pouring tons of money downtown, where we're at as far as population goes.
That census tract, and I was surprised to see it. I saw this new idea that they've come up with, which is very aspirational, beautiful renderings for the 600 million going on a billion idea for making the riverfront beautiful and gorgeous, like like very few places are. I mean, I look at it and I think, well, that's pretty darn nice.
Yeah.
But the population attributed to that census tract right now is lower than it was in 2010, in spite of the JCPenney store going from being empty to having people living in it, DeYoung's having people living in it, new apartments, the loft program that they put all those lofts out there. In spite of all the building and in spite of expanding the possibility for places to live, there's less people down there than there were 14 years ago. Now, there's things that were torn down. There were it's not called Vectron anymore, it's Centerpoint, right?
Right.
That building used to have a residential tower. So however many people were in that, gone.
Right.
So have they replaced enough units to cover that? I don't know.
Yeah.
There used to be a lot of older people in the convalescent home, the infamous McCurdy.
McCurdy.
You know, the 400-year construction project.
Yeah.
And we used to make a lot of fun of that. And remember, I'd write, it has been 1,612 days since they marched the geezers up there to the Wellborn Clinic for a new place to live, and a hammer hadn't hit a brick yet. But a couple of places where people could live stopped being places where they could live. So maybe all these new units haven't even replaced what was there.
Right.
Because part of the new proposal is to build more residential housing. I'll say immediate past Mayor Winnicky came into my office at Gage one day, and he wanted a Trader Joe's in downtown Evansville. And Trader Joe's, I went to the website myself and studied it, and it was, they will not put that unless you have a 50,000 population within X miles, and the average wage of that population has to be what shops at Trader Joe's, and it was 75,000 or something back then. We weren't 10% of the way toward being able to expect something like a Trader Joe's down there. So no credible grocery store, and it's not because they don't like the walkway or the bricks that you talked about.
Right.
It's because the customer base isn't there. You know, here in your nice little office, I bet you there's 5 different branded grocery stores within walking distance. If, you know, I walk 5 miles a day. I know I can walk to 5 of them from here.
Right.
But it's a 1-minute drive. And so where you have people, where you have rooftops, where you have means to purchase, you'll get the grocery store. You can't just ask for it to be there. They promoted one down there. I forget what they called it, Sunny Market or something like that.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
It didn't work. Yeah.
And then it was something else, and it didn't work either. So the demographics of the downtown didn't have sufficiency to support a grocery store. What's that? The drugstore down there, Swarthman.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They put in kind of a little mini mart inside when they had the where you get prescriptions filled and things, and they're not there anymore either.
That was Stratman's.
Yeah, Stratman. Yeah, that's it. I even knew the guy. I forgot his name. How about that? Well, I'm 68 now. I can forget a name every once in a while.
Yeah.
I'm not running for president. But the demographics weren't there then. The demographics aren't there now. There's no gas station in downtown Evansville.
It's true.
There's one not far away. I mean, you could get out on the Riverside Drive and go over to, but it's there because of the Lloyd. It's not there because of the rooftops and the income. So the basic things are just not there. And so here's you want to live downtown, whether it's New York City, San Francisco, anywhere. The basic things need to be within walking distance, not driving distance.
Yeah.
And we're not there in Evansville. And I don't see a path to it. Maybe this new thing is a path to it, but 15 buildings aren't going to get you to 50,000 people making $75,000 a year each.
And downtown is a different mentality than suburbanites.
Suburbanites expect to drive to the grocery.
Right. And downtown, people living down, and I don't think we've developed a culture here, and maybe that's part of the issue, is that we just don't have the culture here of that walk to get here or walk to get there. sort of system, even if you had the components in place. Say you had a grocery store downtown, you had, pharmacy downtown, you have all these needs being taken care of in a downtown.
Let's add an elementary school. I mean, they have a good high school down there, but just everybody's not going to be able to perform at Signature.
Right.
It's one of the best public high schools in the United States, maybe the best. It's been in the top 10 for years.
But even if you have all those elements in place,
people don't get it.
Right. You still have to have people who have that mentality of living downtown, because it is a different lifestyle.
Yeah, I know it.
And I don't know how you develop that. I don't know.
Well, the people who want it, and I guess I was one of them when I lived here. I didn't live downtown. I lived way out in the country. But I would have liked it, but I've traveled. I've been to all the big cities, most of them in the world, and you stay in a hotel. You don't have to rent a car. You can, there's 50 restaurants, all different ethnic varieties, everything. Not just a Subway and
right
and Ling Ling's or the Chinese restaurant down there. You need to have a variety of things to do. You need to have safety, over and above safety. New York City, parts of it have terrible demographics for crime.
Right.
Not down there where these ladies with the $1,000 strollers are pushing the baby carriages around.
True. And since you bring it up, Evansville's crime statistics are horrible.
Yes, they are.
We have, we're above the national average in almost every category that the FBI tracks for those statistics. And there are online publications that list Evansville as being the third or fourth most dangerous city in the state of Indiana.
Yes, and I think it was 22 in the United States. The most recent one, it was a Neighborhood Scout, I believe is who put that out.
Yes, I saw that one. Ahead of Gary.
Well, there's nobody living in Gary anymore.
No,
it's abandoned.
Yeah,
Michael Jackson left and everybody else followed him.
Yeah. So again, that idea of how you're going to attract people to come to and create a vibrant downtown. Who wants to come to a city that has that kind of crime statistics associated with it?
Now, not many. Not, and especially not the ones who are going to shop at the Trader Joe's or Bristol Farms or a Fresh Market to go down there. No, they pay money to go to the suburbs, not because they like driving and things like that. It's because the schools are going to be better. They can walk down the street and, you don't have to look over your shoulder and worry about somebody knocking you in the head. But, in a little bit of defense of the statistics on Evansville, there's parts of Los Angeles that are rotten too.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
And they're not sitting right next to the parts that are beautiful and safe. So everybody has their problem areas, and so does Evansville.
Right.
And I think we all know who it is. You remember that old song, Steve Miller Band, Jokers to the right and
Clowns to the left,
Clowns to the left, Jokers to the right. I used to drive north on the 41 coming from Kentucky to Evansville, and it was, a cocaine to the left of me and meth heads to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle lane. That's it.
Very true. Yeah. And we tend to put focus on small sections as opposed to, I don't know how much we do holistically, or in the broad picture. We focus on, for example, with Jacobsville, we focus on North Main Street, and North Main Street looks pretty darn good right now.
It has always lived pretty good. There's been nice restaurants that were up there and stayed, but if you get 100 feet away,
precisely,
it's trouble.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's where you had to park.
Right. And so, but we continue as part of our economic development. We've poured, and we're able to, proudly say we're investing in Jacobsville. Well, not really. We're investing in North Main.
Which happens to be surrounded by Jacobsville. You're
exactly.
investing in Custer, and Custer's surrounded.
Yeah, precisely. So, and then to pay for these improvements, the big thing is TIFs. And the formula of TIFs, or the world of TIFs, I started researching it, and my eyes just crossed, and it's like, wait, this works how? And
they only work when something new comes in, because that's where you get the incremental financing.
Right.
That's what the I is for, incremental. No new stuff, no tax money.
So, but we hang our hat on TIFs. We've done it with downtown. Downtown's divided into, I don't know how many different TIF districts there. North Main has a TIF district.
I think there's buildings that one building is a TIF district.
Entirely possible. Yeah. And when they talk about the riverfront renovation, part of the funding that they're talking about is from creating even more new TIFs. And again, that it's one of those government fuzzy math kind of things that I don't know that anybody will ever decode the mystery of the TIF.
It's it's a great idea, and when they work pretty well, but you almost have to time them in a way that you go from nothing to something massive that's generating a lot of cash. Then you can get that and turn nothing into something, and what's next to nothing into something. But most of the time, you form a TIF, you need $100 million, you get $1 million, you put up a light bulb, things like that. And, the cost of doing anything that involves government money now is so out of hand. The big talk in the nation now is we need housing, affordable housing. Do you know what they're spending to create 1 unit of affordable housing in California right now?
No.
$1 million.
Wow.
And they call it per door. And that's probably a place the size of your office here, 800 square feet. They're over $1,000 a square foot. I live in what's considered a luxury home. For $1,000 a square foot, you come buy it from me. You can have everything that's in it too. I don't care, the guitars, the art, the everything, the furniture, and I'll still have double what I could get for it if I held an auction. And so you've got to get a handle on it. I remember writing, they were redoing some old safe house, and Ron Cosby, we were talking about, my God, they're spending $220,000 a door to fix up this old safe house. Today, that's the down payment. Things have increased in price that much in 13 years.
Yeah.
That is not affordable housing. That is a lottery where whoever gets selected at random to live in it wins the lottery. He gets to pay $900 a month because that's what his income will allow him to pay to live in something that was $1 million worth of taxpayer dollars was spent on. This is not expandable. It's not sustainable. And it's a terrible, terrible thing. If you could do what they're doing for $1 million, for $200,000, it might be the answer to everyone's prayers.
Right.
Yeah.
And the market just keeps becoming tighter because of the fact that we have immigration issues that we're dealing with, and a lot of communities are trying to provide free housing for migrants.
Believe me, I understand.
Yeah.
This is somebody that lives 2 hours from the border.
So, and Evansville is facing that, and we've got this rapidly growing Haitian population in town now that resources have to be funneled to, and the cost of doing that is just so astronomical. And one of the things they talk about here with affordable housing is that they want to do mixed income level housing to where they're doing housing for affluent, but they're going to
so it doesn't turn into the projects in the late 60s and early 70s sense of things.
Right. An interesting experiment. I don't know how well that works out in practicality. 10 years down the road, how are those particular developments still doing? And I guess that's something we'll just have to wait and see on. But certainly, something's got to give on that cost for affordable housing, because we can't afford those kind of renovation costs.
One of the things that we tried to do with the old safe house, and we didn't have any power or money, but it was, can we shame them into doing something that makes sense? There was a 300-unit apartment complex on the east side that was for sale. It's about $25,000 a door. Well, that's only 90% off of what they were spending to fix up the safe house.
Right.
Why don't you just buy it and convert it? There you've got your answer. Buy stuff that isn't being used at rock bottom prices, and if you got to paint them and put in new toilets, it's all right, fine. But don't pay $9,000 for a toilet or $500 for a toilet seat that governments have been known to do. I've seen that toilet seat, that $500 toilet seat.
Oh my
Held
gosh.
it in my hand. It was made for airplanes. It didn't weigh as much as a coaster. Paid for itself in one shot in the space because of the weight difference.
Right.
But you don't put that in your house.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Lowe's sells them all day long for about $25.
precisely. Yeah. So, the emphasis. Well, let me ask you that, because some of this are national trend things. So I'm curious about, there's a huge national trend now that actually EREP is kind of a part of that trending, right? And that is that you develop a nonprofit corporation, regardless of how it's filed with the feds, nonprofit organization of some sort, that actually is a flow through for government money.
Yes.
Statewide, we did that. Indiana, I don't know the acronym for it for the state now off the top of my head, but
the IEDC is what it used to be.
Yes, that's what it is. Yes. Well, IEDC is just simply the taxpayer dollars come into the treasury for the state, and then they turn around and they give it to IDEC, and then IDEC can distribute that without the same accountability standards as what you have if that money stayed in the government treasury.
That's correct.
And then we develop these regional hubs so that now IDEC takes and goes, Evansville, you need $25 million to do XYZ ready projects. We filter that. It's still taxpayer dollars. We've filtered it through IDEC. Now we're going to give it to EREP so that they can develop whatever for $25 million or give it out as grants. And again, that accountability is not the same as it is for every other dollar that the taxpayer parts with.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so Gage was a 501c3.
Right.
The place that I've running, called the Coachella Valley Economic Partnership for 12 and a half years, is also a C3. We had different reporting requirements. We had to have an annual audit. We filed a Form 990, and you could go to GuideStar and just pull it off of there. And I could pull them off of any nonprofit in the country that's required to do that.
Precisely.
So EREP is registered there. Ron asked me to see if I could get their stuff. Wasn't anything there when I looked. Now, it's been 3 or 4 months ago, so maybe it's there now. I haven't looked recently, but they're a C6.
Right.
And the difference is a C3 cannot lobby at all.
Right.
And I made it a point to make no political commentary on California things. And I could, but I might open myself up to unnecessary criticism or loss of funding, or in some cases you could get more money if you put the tar and feathers in the right place. But my decision was just to be zip on it the whole time so as to stay away from it, because I didn't want to lose that nonprofit status. Same with Gage. I didn't delve into politics at all, and it was the best solution to go with. A C6 can lobby.
Right.
So chambers, a chamber of commerce, which is kind of the genesis of EVREP. It's
right.
in the space that the chamber used to be in.
Mm-hmm.
A C6, their whole purpose is to advocate for business. They had a person whose job, and at one time it was Steve Schaefer, would go to Indianapolis to, they call it lobbying, I call it badgering, but it's the same thing, to try and impose the will of the businesses of Evansville onto the state legislature, things to be business friendly. Now, how does that work in the same building with a C3 that cannot lobby? It's, because one of them has to disclose everything that's done with any public dollar, and the other one doesn't necessarily have to. But when the public dollars are flowing in, as they are here, the expectation of the constituency is that you will follow those reporting guidelines. And they don't have to. They can stick that, middle finger up and say no. But it's not going to buy them any love. Right. So, I wish them the best. I want to see everything work well. But it's, I'd say it's not the most transparent place I've ever tried to find things out about.
Yeah. And they're not just the money for going there isn't just state money. Then they're, in addition to that,
the city and county
are giving, I think, $600,000-700,000 a year each in as well.
Doesn't mean it's necessarily the wrong thing to do.
Right. But it's the accountability. It's the transparency part of it. It's that what we the people need to understand is that government is there to function for us, and that when we pay our taxes, we're not making a contribution. We're not just.
It says that on the forms. They call taxes contributions in IRS forms. It's not optional.
Right? Yeah.
Some people have tried to treat it as it is, and they've broke a few rocks. They're making more gravel for the state highway funds here.
But the thing of it is that that money is still our money.
Yes.
Even when it's sitting in the state's bank account or the county or the city's bank account, doesn't matter. It's our money. And we have the right to say, how's that money being spent?
Yes.
And every dollar of it, that's the thing. It's not limited to any specific area. They cannot spend money without being accountable for the money that they spend. We let them. That's the problem. We allow government to hand the money over, do these little funding streams, and with no accountability.
Well, didn't we start out with monkeys running a boat somewhere over in Mesca Park?
Yeah.
Very famous old icon over there, the monkey boat.
Yeah.
I remember what they threw at you when you walked past.
Oh, yeah. Well, it is. There is still a lot to do. And it is up to for anybody that has an interest in how government is spending your money, and that should be all of us. If you have an interest in that, you have the right to go and ask those questions. You can ask those questions of the city council. You can ask them of the mayor's office, of the county commission, and of the state legislature. You can ask, how's my money being spent? Where's it going?
And you might get an answer.
You might. I'm in a struggle right now over the the mayor's travel budget, and they're not wanting to release her travel budget. Now,
that ought to be a line item in a budget that you can just go look up.
It's a line item in the budget, but she's already spent $10,000 this year, and is asking for another $7,500, and they won't say how she spent the $10,000. Easy look up. But the city is not.
See, that's just that's just inviting criticism. They ought to just say, okay, plane ticket was $1,200, hotel was $300 a night.
Yeah.
You know, we ate this day, that day, you know, went to this seminar, you know, and 10,000 is, in all fairness, it's a paltry budget for travel for a mayor, but people need to understand what she's doing, why she's doing it.
Right.
And who knows, they might give her 30 next year if it all works.
And you know what Lloyd Winnecke's budget was for last year?
I don't know. I thought didn't he pay for his own travel?
Yeah, because it was only 1,000 of the city money. Yeah. Yeah. So
that's kind of admirable.
Yeah. But now in the budget, there's a $10,000 leap in that. And yeah. So, but there, just give the information. That's all you have to do is just say, here's the budget. I'll ask questions if there are questions. I mean,
I spend $10,000 a year coming back here to visit relatives.
Yeah. Shouldn't be hard, really.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been fun. Now, how often do you come to Evansville?
I usually get in at least twice a year.
Okay.
And it's one of them's usually in this August, September time frame. And then there's usually something going on. I have grandchildren in the area. I have two great grandchildren in Owensboro. And, so I like to come in. And that's probably still going to be a couple times a year. But I will probably stay for 3 weeks or 4 weeks at a time instead of one. Because I used to have to get back to keep businesses going. I mean, I'll tell you, being the CEO of a relatively small place, I haven't had a day without having to check emails and call in and stuff in the 12 and a half years that I ran CVEP. And it was the same way with the 3 years I was at Gage.
Yeah.
It's not a job that you can put on hold, and it's not big enough for the CEO even to be able to go on a trip that's on a beach somewhere and not check at the end of the day.
Right.
But if you're the chairman of Wells Fargo, you can go away for a month and they might not miss you. The machine just keeps turning the wheels and churning out money.
Exactly.
But economic development doesn't. You're always dependent on local government, state government, and investments from local businesses. And so long as you're doing things that try to push the ball forward and make the place better, you'll get the money. But, I'll tell you, all over the nation, cities that are trying to go after nothing but tourism, and I live in a region that's one of the biggest tourism places in the world. The budget for attracting tourism to the Palm Springs region is 30 times the budget for economic development.
Wow.
The goal of economic development is to diversify the economy into better paying jobs. Their goal is to get more people to spend the weekend in Palm Springs and spend money at restaurants.
Right.
Which is the harder job. One wants a miracle, the other wants a party.
Right.
Nothing wrong with parties, but you know what? Why is it a big tourist place? Sunshine in the winter.
True.
There's some that come in the summer, but not many.
Yeah, I'd go for that sunshine in the winter.
Of course.
Absolutely.
You won't catch me coming here when it's 70 there in December. I'm staying there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Take one of those 20 below days. I'll go anytime. Great having you here.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.
And I always look forward to seeing your insights in City County Observer. I'm glad that you're submitting articles there, and it's always interesting to see what you have to
Notice
say.
I've shifted to more national topics than local topics.
Yeah, and it's great insights.
So I went back, the first thing I did after retirement is I signed up for an online 6-course sequence at Vanderbilt. I am now a certified and credentialed AI practitioner in ChatGPT. Most of this stuff is coming off of ChatGPT because I was taught how to do prompt patterns that would get it to spit out competent things. And so almost everything that you're seeing is coming out of that, but I have to write a paragraph to get an article.
Right.
What used to take me 4 or 5 hours to do by doing a Google search and reading all this stuff, You can do it in 10 minutes. And you can fact check it and all right there. You know?
That's the next new wave, I think.
Oh yeah, it's I call it. It's like being in a chat room with God.
Well, I have attempted, but my paragraphs of information turn into gibberish before I can complete them.
It'll do that to you. Tell it how many words not to exceed. If you tell it, if you can't write a book with it, people say, "Oh, you can." No, you can't even write a chapter. After about 1,000 words, it starts looking for words to do. It works on next word prediction. That's what it does. Probability of next word. And when you give it enough stuff to run with, it'll do all the research. The stuff that it would take you a day, it does it in seconds, and it prints it right in front of you. You're just reading it off, and you're like, man, I wish I could write like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's you've provided some interesting stuff. We'll look forward to reading more from you.
I'll keep it up, and it's usually just the idea of the day. And Ron will call and say, "What'd you write about that for?" I don't know. I was just, sitting here. I read this article. I watched this TV show. I went on a walk, and I came home, and this is what I'm going to write about today.
Well, we've got to do this again next time you come in.
All right. Sure. Sounds great.
Okay. Appreciate it very, very much. Thanks for being here. And I want to remind you, of course, to hit the share and like buttons and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes. We've got some great episodes on the way for you. We'll be talking to some of the local political candidates. Well, as if that's going to be much joy in that. But we'll try to turn it into something fun and interesting. So don't miss out on the next episode of This Week with Johnny Kincaid.